Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm conscious of the time. I've got a lot to rattle through. But first off, as a sports-loving Englishman in Dublin, yes, congratulations on a record-breaking Cheltenham Festival and a record-ending performance on Saturday. So, yes, with slightly gritted teeth, well done. Right, so if Matthew's touched on or focused on the at-home, the grocery retail market, my focus today is very much on the out-of-home market. So, yes, looking at post-Brexit implications and opportunities for Irish suppliers. But first, it would be remiss of me not to just very briefly say I'm from MCA. We are an insight-driven, report-producing, event-running, news-providing research consultancy, very much focused on the out-of-home market. And please do look us on our website if you're not familiar with it. And one new innovation, which I will just flag up, which I don't actually touch on today to any great extent, is the menu tracker. We have launched a new tool which tracks all dishes, all product descriptions, all their prices of 150 brands in the out-of-home market. So we've got menus from spring, summer last year, autumn, winter last year, now autumn, winter this year. So you can see how product trends are evolving, what little ingredient differences are coming through. And you know, I think it's potentially quite a useful source of information for people targeting the out-of-home space. Right, so some Brexit, some excessive hysteria, potentially. Well, certainly it did lead to some volatility in the currency markets, and yes, there was a few visual gags going around, including that one there. Right, some more serious headlines from last year, certainly focusing on rising inflation and some reducing confidence. But is it all bad news? Well, the key takeout from this is that we run an annual top-of-mind survey with senior executives across the market. It's conducted every December. And yes, in terms of their outlook for the year ahead, there has been some significant deterioration in confidence levels and expectations for growth in the market in 2017. Quite some contrast to sort of a buoyant period 12 months ago. And these are some of the quotes that we captured. Certainly some concerns around leisure spend and on cost pressures. But also I think it's important to recognise Brexit, higher input prices is just one factor in a set of concerns for out-of-home operators and suppliers. They are seeing increasing cost challenges with regards to inflation of wages and also some uncertainties around the availability of labour and also with issues in terms of business rate hikes and other property costs. So a series of headwinds and maybe some headwinds gathering in importance. Well, first off, I'm just going to briefly look at some back history and then the present, and we move on to the future. So first off, this is our segmentation of the total eating out market. A key point to take out is it's highly fragmented across a range of locations. I'm sorry that this has gone out of sync, but I think some people will have seen the presentation, so you'll have a more neater and more accurate copy of that. I touched on the fragmentation in this market. Very much unlike grocery retail, this is highly fragmented. McDonald's is the leading operator, has sales of about 2 billion, and it sort of broadly equates to a 2% market share. Certainly very different from Tesco's 30-odd%. And it is the leading operator in terms of visits from our eating out panel tracking at breakfast and at lunchtime, and is not far off top position at dinner either. So stepping back a little bit and looking at the two markets, the out-of-home and the at-home, and using some data from the Office of National Statistics, we can see how in recent years there has been this slowdown in the grocery retail market, and some continuing expansion of the out-of-home market. So whilst the grocery retail market is bigger, it's certainly more consolidated and has seen some relatively slow growth rates in comparison to what we've seen out of home. And then if we just look at one of the leading trackers in the market for these, they track the sales of the 30 key out-of-home companies, and looking at their like-for-like moves and total sales growth over last year. We can see total sales sort of running at around about 4% and like-for-likes running at about, say, 1%. But certainly sort of probably some envious rates in comparison to what has been seen in grocery retail. And if we look at data from Barclaycard and what they're picking up in terms of credit card and debit card spends, we can see there in terms of the total market and how that's grown, but there's been significant higher growth going through pubs and restaurants, and this is symptomatic of what is generally regarded as a shift from buying stuff to buying experiences. And then it's been touched on already, but consumer confidence. Certainly there was an impact at Brexit. It continues to be in the negative territory, but certainly by no means at the levels we've seen at 4 or 5 years ago. Right, and then in terms of an ASDA income tracker of household discretionary income, so after all non-discretionary essential purchases have been taken into account, we've had some sort of fairly strong growth there, 6%, but the trend is falling, and certainly with rising inflation eating into real wage growth, we would expect that sort of downward trend to continue. Right, now I want to move on to some insights from our own Eating Out panel. We're tracking the behaviour of 6,000 consumers every month in terms of how much they're spending, where they're spending, how often they're going out, what they think about the last occasion, whole host of missions, needs, KPIs. I'm going to show you 2 key metrics. First off, we've got average spend per visit. And you can see here across all of the main day parts, we've got an increase in spend over the year to 2016 versus 2015. So some positive news there. To a certain extent influenced by some menu price rises being passed on, but also some elements of trading up as well. Right, now if I move on to frequency, and I'll just perhaps take a little bit more time, try and unpack this slide. Again, we've got the different day parts at the bottom. We've got the share of total visits highlighted in here. And then these figures here show the monthly number of visits on average per person at these day parts. So on average, we see 2.6 meal occasions at dinner per month per person. And those can be extrapolated up to those different volumes of visits you see. But there's a nice little sort of stats that I take out of this. If I was to just focus on the sort of 3 main day parts of breakfast, lunch and dinner, and add up my 2.5, 4.6, 2.6, I'm getting to a figure near, let's call it 10. Now, over the course of a month, there would be 3 meals a day times 30 days, 90 meal occasions. So we're seeing something like 1 in 9 meals per person being consumed out of home. And that actually has been a slightly sort of growing trend over recent periods. And yes, we can see growth in that activity at all day parts, and some significant volumes at snacking occasions. This will include mid-morning snacks, mid-afternoon snacks, and late-night snacks. But certainly a much lower average spend per occasion. Now, let's go back. If we look at the trends on a quarterly basis in terms of visit frequency, we can see how in the second half of the year there is a little bit of a decline coming through, perhaps a little bit of nervousness, and certainly for the first 2 months of 2017, a slightly sort of weakening trend in visit frequency has been maintained, so I would expect to see a further lowering for Q1 2017 to emerge. Now, if we just sort of try to sort of get behind the profile of the eating out consumers, there's some very sort of interesting behaviour differences. Whilst 18 to 34-year-olds only account for 29% of the total UK adult population, in terms of their share, their importance within this market, it's disproportional, 46% share of visits. And visit frequency declines with age. It's almost a sort of a linear relationship. Interestingly and conversely, in terms of average spend per visit, average spend is highest amongst older adults. Visits tend to be more celebration-oriented, more treat-oriented, whereas there's much more of a sort of everyday event for younger adults. Right, so what do we think is going to happen? I'm going to start off in more the sort of near term and then move on to the slightly longer term. But in terms of economic considerations, yes, widely, I'm sure there's no surprises here, but implications of higher cost of imported goods, increasing importance of cost control, perhaps some greater cost engineering, potential rise in promotional activity, slower discretionary spending that's likely to put the focus more on essentials and perhaps more on grocery purchasing, growing importance of value for money communication, and certainly it's been seen in London, but perhaps some locational benefits for attractive tourist locations. Right, so if we were to just get this sort of crystal ball out for this year, we think participation in terms of total people active in this market is going to very slightly decline. We're going to see a decline in visit frequency, but perhaps still certainly some growth, inflation fueled perhaps, but in terms of average spend still being relatively strong. And if I was to sum up, I've cut a few slides out here, but these are some of the key pointers that we'd highlight. Tougher year expected, consumers cutting back on some higher spend occasions, so highlighting the importance of those people better able to address convenience. We've heard about the importance of quality, totally reiterate that, but also some value for money messaging. Right, now one of the things that we track very closely as part of our wider market awareness and scrutiny are the opening plans and opening intentions of various operators in this market. And if we just look at the largest 140 brands, we can see that we expect them to account for 14,500 outlets at the end of this year. And that accounts for around about 20% of sales through the total market. But the key message here is the slowdown that we're seeing. Business confidence is being impacted. And so, yes, we are expecting some slowdowns in expansion plans over the year ahead. Now, certain brands have perhaps been more affected than others. Bill's, Loungers, and to a certain extent Pizza Express have enjoyed decent growth rates in recent years. We expect those to slow. There has been some challenges at a number of other brands. Ed's has had certainly had its struggles since been taken over. Fair and Square and Crown, amongst the pub chains. There's some sort of rebranding, reallocation to different brands within certain pub groups. But let's not lose sight of the fact that there will be, they're small, they're more contemporary brands, Turtle Bay, Caribbean, Franco Manca, artisanal pizza. I did actually have another one in the middle there, that seems to have gone off. But there will be, this isn't, it's a mixed bag out there. I think that's the key point to take out. There will be some smaller chains that are more in touch with these more active millennial consumers who will continue to do well. There we go, Five Guys. Right, so in terms of our total predictions for the value growth in this market and total outlet growth, we are seeing some contraction expected in this year. Still growth, but slowing growth. Now, We do break down, as you might have seen from that segmentation map earlier, and this just takes it down to another layer still, some of the smaller channels and segments within the total eating out market, and I've just tried to highlight here the top fastest growing in the market. Branded contemporary fast food, and by that we are putting in the non-global, non-traditional fast food players, so the likes of Leon and Pod. So you can still get go to the counter, order it from the counter, take your food away. That's the service style for fast food, but they are this newer style, so the healthy oriented, as I say, Leon, Pod, some more of the Mexican chains, Tortilla, Chilango, and then some of the more sort of Asian inspired, Wasabi, Itsu. So there's a number of operators that are worth keeping an eye on in this market. Right, so in terms of the medium to longer term opportunities, right, so in terms of outlet growth, the leading channel in terms of maintaining strong growth, we regard it as coffee shops, sandwich retailers and bakery-led stores, so that we put Greggs in there. There's typically smaller units, typically lower ticket operations, and certainly will play perhaps more to a lunchtime grab-and-go market, and that's one that has seen stronger market outperformance, and we expect that to continue. And we certainly expect Britain's love affair with quality coffee continuing to be a growth driver in this market. Now, if we translate that into turnover expectations, yes, we're going to see further growth in the coffee shop channel, fast food, both traditional and more newer contemporary styles, but also grab and go. And retail grab and go, I'm certainly putting that in the sort of convenience stores space, but also some of the other grocery stores and some of the other sort of perhaps Boots of this world, able to tap into that convenient-driven, more busier lifestyles market. So if we were to just do a little summary in terms of some of the winners and losers in terms of total sales over the next 4 years, interestingly, we're highlighting there managed, branded and franchised pubs as the sort of biggest revenue gainer. They are a significant chunk of this market, despite the decline in pub numbers in the UK. That's more focused around some of the tenanted, leased and wet-led players. We're still fairly optimistic that there'll be more migration from that sort of sub-market into the managed sector. There'll be more focus still on food amongst the pub chains. So it's still got significant growth potential, as has the branded restaurant space. So in terms of channels to look out for, certainly those should be on the radar. Now, just changing tack slightly, in terms of what our industry executives say are the most important longer-term consumer trends that are coming through to shape this out-of-home market. The biggest trend is the changing behaviour of millennials. I'll dive into that a little bit more later on. But also growing demand for home delivery, eating on the move is also flagged up. So again, some trends just to sort of be aware of and to try to sort of ensure that you're tapping into. Now, in terms of trends, we categorise them in terms of warm, hot, emerging, established, and perhaps peaked. And if I was just to sort of try to sort of unpack some of those different categories and how we sort of have highlighted some of those trends and the growth rate attached to some of those, these are some of the pointers that come out. And you know, do look at some of those emerging and hot trends as well as those larger established ones, so that you can perhaps position some of your arguments to suit. Certainly the millennial generation, we're seeing more flexitarianism coming through, so that's sort of perhaps in a sense part vegetarianism, more experiential dining, mealtime blurs on their terms, more adventurousness certainly coming through, and growing demand for premiumisation and all-day dining. And in terms of sort of food and menu implications, these are some of the growing cuisines that our surveys with industry executives highlight. So continuing importance of healthier eating, it really is a mega trend. I sort of categorise it as a sort of a one-way motorway, and people, operators, to an extent suppliers, are either in the slow lane, the middle lane, or the fast lane, depending on their customer profile. But it's only moving in one direction, and it's going to become more important. We've seen certainly strong growth coming through on barbecuing, but also on premiumisation as well. Right, so to sum up, okay, that's good. Right, I've got some, I think, 4 challenges and 5 opportunities. I'm sure you would hopefully not be too surprised by some of these pointers. Yes, I do think there's going to be tougher negotiations in future. UK companies are facing multiple headwinds, not just Brexit. Yep, there's clearly, goes without saying, weakening price competitiveness with the relative strengthening of the euro, and that well may lead to greater focus from UK-based operators to be looking to source locally themselves. Driving more productivity gains and business efficiencies, okay, not a nice message, but yeah, you are going to be faced with more demands around competitive pricing, and so trying to find some business efficiencies, I think, is going to be essential for pretty much everyone. And then focusing on more attention on those faster growth channels and categories, and hopefully a number of those have already been highlighted. So, in terms of opportunities, well, hold the faith. The long-term trend is for greater eating out activity. Eating out has become an ingrained social habit, and the experiential economy has established momentum and resilience. Whilst we might be seeing an ageing demographic profile, we fully expect the more active behaviours of younger adults to be maintained as people age. So pensioners of the future will not be eating out as infrequently as pensioners now, and that trend will continue through the age spectrum. Pick the right horses, target faster growth channels and operators. So I've highlighted some of the faster channels, but also don't ignore the larger players too. So balance your portfolio. Target key and emerging trends, not least around healthier eating, premiumisation, and artisanal and craft. They are key areas of interest for the millennial market, and they are the most important in terms of setting industry agendas. London market will remain strong. Yes, there will be some winners and losers on a locational basis, but we also expect strong growth to emerge in higher footfall and travel hub locations. And then, yes, we do think that there'll be greater need for more UK-based operators to look to internationalise their activities. So we've already seen it on a few players, but there will be more. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. I understand that time is short for questions, but I'll be happy to answer any questions at the lunch break. Thank you all very much.